Oh, shalom, my friends. Let me tell you, 3 rabbis walk into a bar, and they got bumps on their head ever since. See, this is why I don't tell jokes. But you know who does, and who has been telling jokes for nearly all of his 70 years? The one, the only comedian, Jackie the Jokeman Martling. Of course, we all know him from his decades on the Howard Stern Show. He's also been on Sirius XM radio, and he is still, to this day, performing. As a matter of fact, if you're on Long Island on Saturday night, March 31st, you can see him doing his thing at the Studio Theater in Lindenhurst. He's Jackie the Jokeman, and he's with us, and shalom to you, Jackie.
Wow, I've been on Long Island 70 years, and I still haven't ever asked anybody what the hell that means, but thank you, Rabbi, and it's a pleasure talking to you.
A joy and a delight.
You started with a joke, so you're right. You keyed yourself right in with me. You know that.
Well, do you remember the very first joke you ever learned or heard as a child that struck you? Oh, I can see the construction of this. This is funny.
What's really weird, I was like in 2nd grade, and I didn't know from black people, Jewish people, Italians, when you're a kid, you don't know. And this little guy, John Levy, came up to me and said, "You want to hear a joke?" And I didn't even know what a joke was, and I said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, there's a rabbi that was with the same congregation for 30 years, and they liked him so much, they sent him on an all-expenses trip down to St. John's in the Virgin Islands, and he went down there, and he was in his room, and there was a knock on the door, and he opened the door, and this beautiful 20-year-old girl came walking in and started taking off her clothes. And the rabbi called the leader of the congregation and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? 30 years I've married you people. Bar mitzvahs and weddings. I've done everything. I've done funerals. I've been your man for 30 years. And you send a young girl to strip, walk into my room? What is the meaning of this?" And he hangs up the phone. So the girl starts putting on her clothes to leave, and he says, "Where are you going? I'm not mad at you."
No, wait, how old were you when you heard this?
No, that was a big lie, Rabbi. I know better than to lie to a rabbi. No, I was in 3rd grade, and my cousin read a dirty poem.
Well, but still.
A bunch of other guys, and my cousin read a dirty poem. He was in 8th grade, and I was in 3rd grade, and it just blew my brains out, and I remembered every joke since then.
Were you like Steve Allen, where you keep index cards or you keep everything on file? It's just all in your...
I have everything. If I send you pictures of my garage, you would freak out. That's, I've been doing a dirty dial joke for just shy of 40 years. I'm literally supposed to know more jokes than anybody in the world. And they've been written down, rewritten down. They're in the computer. They're in loose sleeves. I've just been manic about it forever. I graduated from Michigan State University in 1971 as a mechanical engineer, and I used my diploma to roll pot.
I cannot say that I ascribe to that behavior and the things that you were doing.
You don't, but you must have met somebody along the way that maybe did.
Oh, well, of course, but I personally abstain from everything except Manischewitz, and even that only on holidays.
You know what's the greatest thing about Jewish people and rabbis?
What?
You could be 18 or you could be 88, and I swear to God, Sal, I have no clue how old you are, and I don't want you to tell me till we're done. The only giveaway that you're older is you're eloquent and you're very smart, but that and you carry yourself so well. That doesn't mean an 18 or 28-year-old kid couldn't do it, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm guessing 50, but don't tell me till we're done.
Oh, fair enough, and I appreciate all the compliments. Flattery will get you everywhere.
Now, I know BAB was the first radio station that ever put me on, and you guys were on their sister station out there, right?
Well, at that point, we were like the red-headed stepsister at that point. We were, there was a station, and still is, called WGBB, where good broadcasting...
Is that John? What's his name? John, what's his face?
Not when we were there. When there was Ling Wu Hao, because a bunch of Chinese people took it over, and it's mostly Chinese.
I know that guy. I've actually had some of his rice.
Was it? Yeah. Well, it's probably sticky rice knowing him. But anyway, I don't even know what that means. So, and I'm sorry for not even mentioning yet in that big intro that I did that you are now the author of an autobiography called The Jokeman, From Bow to Stern, so everybody can get that and read that. In fact, that was the other thing. Since I was talking, or you were talking about archiving everything that you have, you even have tapes, I assume you did not lose them or throw them away, of your early shows on a Long Island comedy club long before Stern. I mean, are those still somewhere?
Oh, of course. The way I met, it's so funny because your producer, Dave, I don't know whether he's your producer, your partner, your lover, whatever he is, I gave him a laundry list of things to plug, and I completely omitted the main thing I've been doing, and that's plugging my book. It's actually The Jokeman, Bow to Stern. It's not From Bow to Stern.
Oh, oops, my fault.
It doesn't matter, but it's selling well into the dozens. And it explains everything about my life and how I wound up on the Howard Stern show. But the way I actually got on Howard Stern was in 1982, I sent him my 3 comedy albums. So is stuff on tape? Yes. I got videotape, audio tape, I got everything. But my actual homemade comedy albums, I was the only guy that was actually doing it then. I was the first guy. I did an album in 1979, another one in 1980, another one in 1981. And in 1982, I mailed all 3 of them to Howard, and he called me up, and I wound up on the show.
Well, wait. There was also a thing in the book about being still in your mama's house and splicing and editing. Was that for those comedy albums or other stuff before?
That's where I was in the attic of my mother's, my family's house, where I grew up. I was actually the attic of that place was the first Jokeland. There were 10 answering machines that answered the 516-922 wine calls with different jokes every day for years. And, I was up there. It wasn't until my 3rd CD that I actually got a computer program and edited the sound on the computer. Like even up until CDs, which was like 1993 and 94. And starting with my first album, it was like, you'd record a show and put it on reel-to-reel tape and then, chop out the places that weren't funny and chop out the pauses. And I got so good at it, by the time I got to my 5th album, my 5th CD, rather, F. Jackie, you can almost dance to the jokes. There's no, it's just boom, 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 boom. And, it's really fun to edit them and put them together,
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, there's an artistic side, and you, as much as anybody else, will understand the flow and the rhythm. For example, when you're doing an hour long, or if you do 70 minutes, do you plan it like, big laugh here, I gotta put a little crappy joke in here just to give the audience a moment to have a little laugh or a breathe?
Because you're assuming there's a crappy joke in my act.
I'm sorry, but
not all. Every swing is not a home run.
It can't be a home run because people will get exhausted after 20 minutes.
But my act has an actual, ebb and flow, and there's places where I do a bunch in a row, and then I do some long ones, and sometimes the jokes are a little bit connected, and sometimes they're totally random. But yeah, it's totally calculated. And people say, God, I can't believe how many jokes they just come to you like that. And I say, yeah, that's amazing how they just happen to come to me like that. Except not to break your heart, but if you come tomorrow night, you'll see the same jokes in the same order come to me.
But do you have a cheat sheet near the mic, or literally do you just...
No, the cheat sheet is 70 years of jokes in my head. It's like driving. People say, how can you remember all those jokes? And I say, well, it's simple. When you drive to Manhattan, how do you remember to go past all those exits? Well, they're just along the way. You have a route, and they're along the way. Now, I can get off at the exit anywhere and go tell 5 other jokes or 10 other jokes or go visit, or just start talking. And then I can either come back in where I got off the highway, I can come back in a little further up. And when I go off script, I in my mind, I innately know how much time I have to eat up to, but it's pretty much cut and dried what I'm going to do. It's like you have a script so you can break it.
And also there's that connective tissue. If, let's say, you're on a theme, you can tell 5 jokes in a row, and one leads to the other, both in the audience's mind, but it also connects in your mind.
Right. And also sometimes I'll go, if I'm talking about a certain thing, I'll tell more jokes about that thing or come back. Some nights I do more Jewish jokes. Sometimes I do more Italian jokes. Sometimes I feel a little naughtier than others. But most nights, and my act actually has a real build to it. It starts fairly innocently and then gets a little worse and a little worse until it's just pretty despicable at the end. And it's not totally linear, but it's kind of linear. You can... the blue scale increases as we forge ahead,
But can I ask you, as someone who has been collecting and knowing jokes for about 5 or 6 of your 7 decades at this point, is there such a thing as a new joke, or are there maybe 10 or 15 templates?
There's every joke is a new joke. See, people you need this explained. But once somebody explains to you, it's so clear. Every single joke is either a new joke or an old joke. A new joke is simply a joke I'm telling to somebody who hasn't heard it before. And after that, to them, that's an old joke. If I tell you a joke and you haven't heard it before, that's a new joke. And then if you hear somebody else tell it an hour later to you, oh, that's an old one.
Oh, no, but I didn't even mean in terms of the age of the joke. I meant in terms of the patterning of how jokes are...
Pretty much no. I always tell people, we've been around for eons, and whether you believe that 6,000 years ago we were placed on the earth like toy soldiers by some god, or whether you think that Adam and Eve... created us, or whether we walked out of the sea as chimpanzees, the bottom line is it's been thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And for somebody to think that they can say something witty about pooping, farting, coming, vomiting, relationships, wives, husbands, if you think you could say something that hasn't been said before, you need an ego the size of Donald Trump's hair. You know what I mean? And of course, microwave jokes started when microwaves happened, but they're always kind of based on the, it's...
The first time a caveman saw fire, it was a microwave joke just 2,000 years earlier, or 8,000 years earlier, something like that.
My wife's such a bad cook, she can't even rub 2 sticks together to make the fire, or she can't even turn on the microwave. It's just the same,
It's from the same... Now, and one of the things I am proud of you for is that you tell early in the book that the joke that made you, the joke that launched you, because it hooked you up with with Rodney Dangerfield, who loved one particular joke. It wasn't even your joke. You heard it from a friend.
Yeah, well, and it's not even a joke. It's kind of just like a fat girl insult, but the art of comedy writing, and the great thing about comedy, is the right joke in the right place at the right time. I mean, once you know jokes, like I've been to so many movies where you see a joke coming from around the corner, and nobody else does, but you see it, and it can be the oldest joke in the book, which isn't old because nobody's heard it before, but you get to recognize them, and that Rodney joke, the 2-bagger joke, was just an old Southern expression that probably was around for decades or maybe hundreds of years. And
but the point is,
since the expression of she was so ugly I had to throw a bag over her head, and that joke. I mean, Rodney said that was his favorite joke ever, because it just was so perfect. I mean, Johnny Carson literally fell off his chair when Rodney said that.
Well, it's a hysterical joke, and notice how it traveled. Some friend of yours called you from overseas at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and then...
He called me from Peru. He's down there doing cocaine and buying cocaine, and he met a crazy man from Tennessee called Tennessee Bob, who told him the Tennessee 2-bagger. And to not frustrate the audience, the way Rodney did it was, she was ugly. Oh, she was ugly. She was known as a 2-bagger. That's a girl so ugly, you not only got to put a bag over her head, you got to put a bag over your own head in case her bag rips.
It's not politically correct.
Ugly girl joke.
But by the way, have you ever had or been warned to be more politically correct in what you do, depending on the times?
No, I refuse. If I have a black person in the audience, I look them right in the eye when I'm doing a black joke. But I I don't really do anything really offensive, and I guess that I leave out some of the stuff that was a little heavier along the way, but I don't stop, because they're so silly. They're just stupid jokes, and I know they can be offensive, but I offend everybody. One time I got in trouble with Polish Eagle, which was a publication that was so old it was like mimeograph. If you had mimeograph.
Actually, they were still mimeographing in 2014 because it's the Polish newspaper there. But yes,
this is back in 1982 or something. But still, that was pretty long. I mean, there was a little late in the game to have. They would still be smelling the
yes, that blue ink
alcohol on the mimeograph copy.
Yeah.
But they got wind that this guy was telling Polish jokes, and they put in their newspaper, we're going to shut this guy down. He's offensive. He said the Pope is an idiot, blah, 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 blah. And I wrote him, and I said, listen, you guys, just come to a show. And so, like 8 of these Polish guys from the Polish Eagle in West Orange, New Jersey, came to the show.
All in the same car, yeah.
Like sold out 400 people. And I was done. They were like, you attacked everybody, and that was the funniest thing we've ever seen, and we apologize, because they had heard word of mouth that I just went up and said, Polish people are stupid, they're jerks, they're no good, and that's how the word got to them, and then they published a retraction, and it was,
It's all about context, it's all about...
Yeah, you could tell somebody to frig off 5 different ways. It can be offensive, or it could be, you can say it to your mom, you know what I mean? It's like... It's all intent. You're absolutely right. It's all intent.
Did you ever, in coming up in the comedy route, go for or try the more observational,
Oh, in the very beginning, I had an act, and I was actually on the road, and it wasn't all jokes. It was like, a lot of, there were like jokes, like Rodney-type jokes. It wasn't like observational, did you ever notice this? But it was more, I come from a stupid family. My father just finished his first book. He says next year he's going to read another one. That kind of stuff.
All right.
And but then I realized pretty quickly, it was actually a club owner at one point. He said, why don't you just do jokes? You tell them so well, everybody goes berserk. And I said, you know what, you're right. That was Lenny Sisselman, who was actually a Jew from Jericho that was running the Nashville comedy club called Zanies in 1983 or something. Lenny Sisselman.
And
where he is.
He was the one that says, just be yourself. This is your wheelhouse. This is what you do the best. So that's what you should do.
Right. Do what you know,
And by the way, to hear Jackie doing what he knows almost better than anybody, there's so many ways to do that. First of all, you're going to want to go to his website, jokeland.com. Also, he releases a whole slew of jokes once a month that you can look at via his Twitter feed at Jackie
No, you're mixing up a little.
Oh, okay.
If you want to get jokes once a month, email me, Jokeland, Jokeland at AOL.com, and I send out jokes once a month. I actually sent a bunch of them yesterday. And I tweet a joke every day at 4:20 p.m. International Marijuana Time. I tweet a joke or a couple jokes, and of course tell people where I'm going to be. And my dirty joke line, use your finger, has been going since January of '79, coming up on 40 years. And that's 516-922-WINE, which is 516-922-9463.
And by the way,
Bob Buckman at WBAB used to call that every morning at 8 o'clock for about 3 years when I was running Governor's Comedy Shop in Levittown, Long Island. And it put me and the Dial Joke and Governor's on the map. I got calls from around the world. Rick Dees found out about it, and Rick Dees actually used to give out the number and say, all right, folks, this is Tom Selleck's home phone number. Say 516-922-9463, and the phones would explode,
And it made your name. I mean, you didn't get a penny. It wasn't like a 900 number, but it got your name out there.
It's been costing me money every time I pay the bill. It's like, now it's just a second line on my home. I just couldn't get rid of it. So it's one single line, but it goes off constantly, and every month I get the bill, $27.50, and I'm like, at one point it was 10 lines. I mean, it's been costing me a fortune for 39 years. it's only been one line for the last 10 years.
But it still paid you back in so many other ways,
So many ways. That's how I got Governor's Comedy Shop. That's how,
But let me ask you...
anybody from Long Island, it's hard. You'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that doesn't know what that is.
I remember, oh my gosh, I remember Dial-A-Joke, where every week you could hear a different comedian. I mean, that wasn't connected to you, but I just remembered that. Was that based on you, or was that first?
No, Dial-A-Joke was there, and they actually came to me. First of all, they sent me, it was originally X-rated Dial-A-Joke.
Huh.
He said, you can't use the phrase Dial-A-Joke, so that's when I made it use your finger. 516-9221. It's so funny. Here I am, me against Ma Bell. I'm one guy in my mother's attic, And then I got popular enough that Charles, the guy that created the Dial-A-Joke, called me up, and I actually did, for a year or two, I did Dial-A-Joke Blue, which was the exact same,
the idea, but your jokes were a little more risque.
Joke or 866 joke, whatever the number was, and from 12 midnight until 6 in the morning, it wasn't dirty, but it was much more off color than the Dial-A-Joke during the day, which was like Henny Youngman,
Wow. By the way, we're talking, I should mention again, to Jackie the Jokeman Martling, author of the memoir, The Jokeman, Bow to Stern. And let me ask, the elephant in the...
People, if you want to buy a copy, it's available on hardcover or Kindle or audiobook, an Audible audiobook, and they're all available if you go to JackieTheJokeman.com. That link takes you immediately to the Amazon page. Jackie the Jokeman, like one word, JackieTheJokeman.com. And it's selling well. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, please. The whole point is you wanted people to experience you live when you're playing at the 31st at Studio Theater. You want them to check your website, go to your Twitter, and buy, of course, your book. But here's a question. You mentioned Rick Dees, with whom you were first allied in radio. Did he feel a little betrayed when you were sending material to Howard Stern?
No. Rick Dees got wind of Dial-A-Joke, and he was taking the jokes from Dial-A-Joke and playing them on his show, and putting them on his weekly top 40 countdown. And my sister and a friend of mine, Bill Haberman, at two different points said, "Hey, we heard 922 Wine on the radio." And I'm like, well, that's great. And they told me the joke. And I said, that joke was on a month ago. And they said, listen, we know your jokes. We're not crazy. And I didn't understand. And what happened was, I was on BAB doing my thing, but Long Island is far ahead of anybody, But it was a crazy time. So things are transitioning. 79 and 1980 when all of a sudden people had HBO. And all of a sudden there's bare breasts on your TV,
And thank goodness for that.
So my Dial-A-Joke got dirtier and dirtier. And then one day Rick D called up and said, listen, all the jokes on 922 Wine are too dirty for me. Will you make some jokes especially for me? And I said, sure. So I made him Dial-A-Jokes for a couple $100 a month. I made him like 20 spots a month. And he was paying me and using them on his top 40. It was like, it was...
But it wasn't like you were on a crew, sitting there, getting paid, full-time job.
No. And I was with Rick Dees. In fact, Rick Dees was the guy who named me Jackie the Jokeman, and which nobody knows. And then Howard got my albums, and Howard had me on. And then at some point, somebody said, listen, you can't still be on BAB and Rick Dees and be on K-Rock. And I said, all right,
And that's...
It's all transitional,
When did you realize that the Stern Show was not just a successful morning radio program, but a phenomenon?
It was, what it was? It was the old thing where you put a frog on a frying pan and turn the heat up gradually. Nobody knew. Like he had when he got to New York, they brought him to New York because he was good. And he had gotten my albums, and he called me after he was in New York for maybe a month or two. But he was kind of taking it by storm slowly, like that. A lot of people were in his way, and a lot of people were against him. But it was a kind of a phenomenon from the beginning. Just like any phenomenon. Like in the beginning, there was 50 girls going crazy for the Beatles, not 600,000.
Sure.
You know, but it had a sparkle or something. Now, I am not a radio guy. I never listened to radio in my life. So the day I had never listened to a show, I didn't know anything. So the day I met them was the first time I knew anything about, except for doing morning drive with Buckman. I never listened to the show. I didn't listen to music on the radio. He'd call up and I'd do my jokes, but I didn't even listen to it.
Uh-huh.
I went in and I was with Howard, one day a week, and then they asked him to go to mornings, and he had me 2 days, then 3, then all of a sudden 5 days, and it was catching on pretty good, so all of a sudden, they took me to 5 days because the show was funny when I was there, and it was good, and you felt some kind of groundswell, but when all of a sudden they said, all right, we're going to take a chance here, and, we did some Fox pilots for Fox TV, which was, but it was so off the charts, the concept of doing that. I don't think we even thought we were big enough to be doing that. I'm saying we. It's not we. It's Howard. But
sure.
Still, and that bombed pretty bad. But when they decided to syndicate, and the syndication worked, that was, because that was a template. Everybody always said radio was local and it can't work in another state, in another city. So when all of a sudden the show worked in Philadelphia and Washington, it was like, oh boy. And then slowly but surely we just,
You conquered.
It took like 2 or 3 years to beat John DeBella in Philadelphia, but he just chipped away and chipped away. And so funny because it really was so gradual. They couldn't get Howard or Robin to do many interviews, and so I was like the third, and Fred wouldn't, so I was like the third or fourth guy in the totem pole, and I had shows to promote, so I'm willing to talk to anybody. And so many of these writers would say the same thing. They say, well, you guys are really hot stuff, but how long can it last?
Mm.
And then that's after a couple of years, and then 3 years later, somebody said, oh, you guys are really great, but how long can it? And for 15 years, they kept saying, well, this is good, but how long can it last? And Howard kept, reinventing with the pay-per-views and the specials and the videotapes and the book and the television show and then the film. We just went to the moon. All of a sudden, one day you woke up and said, "Holy Christ, I'm rich." When did this happen?
Well, and here's the deal. Also, I mean, you had to get up probably 4:30 in the morning, show up, and then you got 4 or 5 hours on the air. How much time after the show would you have to physically prepare for the next one or the next week ahead?
None.
Oh, you did? So Gary had that kind of job.
Nobody did. The only thing we did was we would sometimes write a song parody or we'd write a bit and record a bit. But aside from that, there was no preparation at all. Sometimes Howard would bring a little piece of paper with a couple of words on it, like a little tiny cheat sheet just to remind him of what he wanted to talk about. But basically, we'd sit there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the microphones would go on, and he'd start talking. Robin would start laughing. Fred start playing sound effects, and I'd start writing. And boom, every day at 6 o'clock, we were off to the races. And, people say, well, how could you be funny at that? There was no pressure on me. It was all on Howard at 6 o'clock in the morning, especially. And then all of a sudden, there's millions and millions of people listening. I'll tell you, if you're a comedian or a writer, if you write a movie, if you're lucky, the movie gets made, and they leave some of your funny stuff in it, and then you go to see it a couple of years later, and there's your joke on the screen. If you're a comedian, you could write a new bit or a joke and then perform it that night and hope that it does well for an audience. I'm sitting there, I'm writing a line, 5 or 10 seconds later, there's millions of people in their cars laughing. That was so hard to wrap your head, or not laughing. They're, like you say, they're not all home runs.
Well, no, but also did...
It was so immediate and so unbelievable. It just...
And it didn't matter to you that people assumed Howard was making those jokes up?
No. I was a writer. That was my job. Hey, Johnny Carson stood up there and read a monologue every night. Nobody ever went, geez, he's got funny writers. He was funny.
Mm.
It's like that was just a job. And I totally understood my job. I mean, I'm going out and getting my yayas, doing my shows. And it's so funny. because people say, "Oh, wow, you're on that Howard Stern show. I don't know if you can come have dinner with my parents." I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" People forget the 18 years that I was there.
Yeah.
We were on terrestrial radio. You weren't allowed to be dirty. You couldn't curse. Every single thing for 18 years was double entendre.
Well, I don't. I mean, lesbian dialect.
So dirty. I left. They didn't get onto Sirius where they could really be filthy for 5 years after I left. Everything we did was going right up to the line and stomping on the line, which was the challenge, which was so fun.
Well, you did stomp on the line. I mean, you did go much, much further than. And I mean, as Howard has taken credit for because he was saying it first. 5 years later, Oprah was saying the word penis.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. Before him, the word, but inherently that is not dirty.
No.
It's all perception. That's what's so funny. They shut me down from selling my CD called Sergeant Pecker, and because the women in Omaha, the little old ladies that took the orders, didn't want to hear the word pecker, and I'm like, what's wrong with them? David Pecker owns the National Enquirer. A chicken has a pecker on its face to eat with.
Oh, yeah, but a chicken can also be called a cock.
How they hear it,
Well, no, but there's we all know George Carlin's 7 words, and there are things you say, and I mean, you did stomp on the line with you and the gang, and Howard stomped on the line.
You can be plenty filthy without using the dirty words, of course.
So, by the way, we've been surprisingly clean so far with Jackie Martling. You can find out more about him by going to his website, jokeland.com, and you can find out all about his life in The Jokeman, Bow to Stern, which you can, of course, get on Amazon. And you're also busy. I mean, now do you still have a radio show on satellite, or are you doing any of that?
I had a radio show. I had Jackie's Joke Hunt for 8 years, but that got shut down about 3 years ago.
Well, I mean, did you shut it down, or they just SiriusXM
Howard just stopped it. We were pretty popular. I think everybody loved it, and they just pulled the plug. What can you do?
Well, and here's the other deal, of course, that people still want to know about. Like everything, you had the perfect job. You had a great job. You were making like $500,000 a year doing what you're doing, but then people want more, and you want respect, and you're fighting with the radio, and then suddenly you're not on anymore.
I was making a lot of money, but I wanted more, and the thing was that I was so fried. I might have died. Just the hours, I couldn't make myself sleep, and I knew I had to quit drinking. I knew I had to get divorced, and it was a whole perfect storm of stuff, and which is all kind of bullcrap, because if they had given me the money, I would have stayed. So, and then I even said I would stay after they didn't give me the money, because it was a great job. But I knew I had put myself in a predicament where I'd probably wind up off it. I'll tell you, I got up at 4:30 for 15 years, and you really have to do that to really, the old thing about walk a mile in my nose. You really have to do that to understand. People go, yeah, no, I know what you mean. I get up at 6 o'clock myself. And I'm like, what do you mean get up at 6 o'clock? I got to be in my seat with a pen ready to go at 6 o'clock. When you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning, 15 minutes, you blow somebody for 15 more minutes. And, it just was crazy. And I was fried. So.
Well, and also, if it's fine to get up at 4:30 in the morning if you go to sleep at 8:30 or 9, but if you're doing a show at a comedy club that gets out at midnight,
I really wasn't doing that much, but the point was I wouldn't go to sleep. I'm a stubborn bastard. My wife and I'd be up at 10 o'clock watching Law and Order when I had to get up at 4:30, which I don't blame anybody. I was very clear about that in the book. I don't blame anybody for me not getting any sleep. It was completely on me. But at some point, it's like saying I'm going to lose weight. After 3 months, you get sick of yourself saying it because you haven't done it. You get to a point where you're not going to do something unless you really change up something, force yourself,
What's interesting is that it sounds like alcohol was the hardest thing for you to kick, which is very understandable, but cocaine doesn't seem to be as big a...
It really wasn't. I just don't think I could have stopped, because there was no way I was going to work as hard as I was and not be rewarded at the end of the week. You know, so, and all of a sudden here I had nothing but free time. I don't even know how bad a drunk I was, but I just knew the booze had to go, the wife had to go, the job had to go. You know, I got divorced, I quit drinking, lost my job, and moved into a house by myself all at the same time, which are all individually things they say if you do any one of those things, don't change anything else. You know, if you quit drinking, keep the rest of your life intact. If you get divorced, keep the rest of your life, you know, so you have some kind of stabilization around you. And I was completely on an ice flow, you know. And, I was a mess for a while, you know.
But it worked. Eventually, you worked all your stuff out, and it's been...
You know, my life is great. I haven't had a drink in almost 17 years, and my ex-wife lives 2 doors away, and I live with a beautiful girl named Barbara Klein, who we're just very much in love.
Wait a minute. Barbara Klein?
And she's not Jewish.
Oh, damn it.
I know. I thought that'd get you excited, Rabbi. I was going to say, you know, your yarmulke is probably spinning because you couldn't afford the propeller, you know.
Oh. How often are you in touch with Howard, Fred, Gary, Robin, if at all?
Not at all. Gary and I exchanged some emails because I guess people told him that they thought I was mean to him in my book, and I didn't mean to be. And I completely, you know, I wrote 2 books and only got to use half the stuff, so I don't know what's in book 2. But I guess I never went out of my way to say, by the way, Gary works really hard, and he really is an important part of the show, which I, of course, thought I had said in my book, so it's probably in the chapters I didn't use. So that was not a
it was an omission, but not...
That was an accident, because he works harder than anybody in the world. I just told Fred I wanted to use his picture in the book, and he said fine, but I haven't seen him. We haven't had lunch.
Is it because there's still water...
Robin, but I haven't seen Howard in a long time, you know.
Is it because there's still some bad water under the bridge, or you just have different lives now? And
you know, it's always... It was weird, because, you know, of course, Howard had his own version of what happened and me leaving and everything, and then my book completely sets that whole record straight. But I'm sure there's a few things in the book he probably wishes weren't in there, because I was very honest, you know. But who knows, you know.
The most shocking part, I have not had a chance to read the whole book yet, but I found the most shocking part so far is that the foreword is by Artie Lang.
Oh, he's a great pal. And his show Crashing is doing really, really well, and he's back on the straight and narrow. I just did Anthony and Artie and Anthony Camilla from Opie and Anthony. The 2 of them do a radio show, or a podcast together, rather. It's like a video podcast every day from 4 to 6 from the compound on 35th Street in Manhattan. And I just did the show like a week and a half ago, and it's so much fun with them because, you know, we're all a mutual admiration society. And he not only wrote the foreword, but he also read the foreword for the audio version. So, you know, he's just a good guy, and he doesn't have a podcast anymore, but when he had it, I did it about 5 times, and we did a couple, you know, we did Gotham Comedy Club together, and, you know, it's a nice relationship. You know, I get along with everybody. I did Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, and we just, you know, really hit it out of the park, and
so
I go on with a lot of people and have fun, you know.
Who were the comedians, besides obviously Rodney Dangerfield, that were iconic and models for you? Were they the Borscht Belt folks? Were they...
Nobody. I was just a joke teller. So I liked Henny Youngman.
Right.
I had no models. I mean, when we started playing in the band, we went and bought all the Red Fox albums because they were solid jokes. And we had every joke book and everything you could possibly gather jokes from. I wound up being pen pals with this guy, Gershon Legman, that's actually...
Now, that's got to be a Jew. Gershon, he has to be Jewish.
Oh, yeah, and he's a crazy man, and he left the United States because he couldn't get any respect because he was, you know, collecting dirty jokes, and they said that's not folklore, and it's absolutely folklore. And
hey, listen to...
I'm actually a scholar. I've been chasing down jokes forever. Like, I loved watching Red Skelton on his TV show in the 60s because he laughed at himself. He had such a good time, and people think, you know, maybe that influenced me, but... You know,
that's
I
true.
just bought Robert Klein's album and listened to it, but I wasn't a guy that was a comedy fan that went and bought George Carlin and Bill Cosby and Mort Saul and listened to the albums. You know, like, I really wasn't interested. The only reason I wound up being a comic is because my band was so bad, it broke up. And I'd been telling jokes my whole life, and that's all I had left was jokes. I wasn't about to get a job.
And it is true. Yeah, I didn't realize that you break one of the great rules of comedy, because once you know the rules, you can break them. And that is laughing at your own stuff, because they say, as an actor, oh, you never cry if you want the audience to cry. You don't laugh at your own jokes, because that keeps the audience from laughing.
There are only 2 rules.
Yeah.
In a comic. Number 1, you don't tell old jokes, and number 2, you don't laugh at yourself.
And guess what?
Not only do I break those rules, that's all I do. Tell old jokes and laugh at myself. And that's why, you know, I certainly haven't gone to the moon. You know, I'm no Seinfeld and no Louis C.K., but I certainly have been making people laugh pretty hard for decades, you know.
Well, I hope you're not Louis C.K., because you'll almost be in prison at this point. But, you know, kidding. We're finishing up our delightful and joyous conversation with Jackie, the Jokeman Martling. By the way, you can...
Here you go. I was on stage with Mark...
with who?
Mark... What's the brothers?
Hudson?
Brothers from Sonny and Cher, way
The Hudson brothers?
The Hudson brothers.
Yeah.
Hudson's a very dear friend. And he does a show on in New York City at a place called the Iridium, called Thursdays on the Hudson. And he has everybody there. I mean, you don't know who you're going to see there. Billy J. Kramer and Richie Cannata from the Billy Joel Band, you know, all kinds of people. So I'm up with Mark Hudson at the Iridium, and I come off stage after I told some foul jokes. And the guy says, Jackie, how you doing? I'm from Suffolk County. I've been a fan for 40 years. I really love you. I know you know all the jokes, but I got to try one on you. And I'm telling you, Rabbi, my whole life, I've said yes to that.
Of course.
I've known every joke in the book since the 70s. I just know them. But I listen every time, because there's always a chance somebody's going to get me with, here we go, with a new joke. What's a new joke?
One you haven't heard before.
The joke I haven't heard yet. It's that subjective. Every joke with every single person.
Right.
Like, somebody can tell me an old joke that's old to everybody, and there could be 5 people standing around, and I'll fall down laughing. They'll say, how could you not know that? That's an old joke. And I'll say, no, it's not old to me.
Right.
It's old to you because you've heard it. And then people have to wrap their heads around that, because an old joke could be a joke you heard 2 weeks ago or a joke you heard when you were a kid.
Right, there are jokes in your mental storehouse you haven't thought about in 40 years. You may have heard them then, but you thought, oh, gosh, and you hear it again, and it's like, oh, that can be funny again. So, yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many things that weren't that funny to me, and all of a sudden I'm like, no, you know what, now you make that work. So this guy grabs me and says, I want to try a joke on you, and he told me a joke that is too dirty for my act.
Oh.
Because I don't really tell jokes about Jesus Christ, or I don't want to slow the audience up. I want to make them laugh as hard as I can, but I don't want to make them laugh so hard or make them think about something, or if they go, ooh, or if they start thinking about Jesus and, oh, my God, what if lightning bolt strikes me? Yeah. I can't lose them, because if I lose them for that instant and they miss the setup to the next joke,
it's a downhill, it's a snowball rolling downhill. Yeah.
Right, so this guy tells me, yeah, it's like somebody tripping over a hurdle. So this guy tells me a joke that I don't use in my act because it's too dirty, but you can tell it on the radio anywhere, and you can tell it to a 4-year-old kid, and he'll go wild. Now tell me that's not the oddest setup for a joke.
Okay, yeah, now I'm incredibly curious. So...
This girl calls the doctor, and she says, Doc, I have diarrhea. Can I take a bath? And he says, if you have enough.
No, wait. Why do you think the audience they would just start thinking about diarrhea and go, please?
They're ow, you know.
Oh, I love that.
And kids go nuts for it. Try, you won't believe it.
Oh, my God. Well, we've been going nuts for and with Jackie the Jokeman Martling, whom, I will remind you one more time, you can see him Saturday night, March 31st at the Studio Theater in Lindenhurst, Long Island. Get your tickets. Find out more at jokeland.com. TotalTheaterProductions.com. Get your daily joke at 4:20 in the afternoon. The Twitter feed at Jackie Martling. Get the book, The Jokeman, Bow to Stern, which is available at all your usual book availability places like Amazon. What else? Get a monthly joke compilation from Jackie for free just by emailing him. Jokeland@AOL.com. It's amazing. AOL is the mimeograph machine of web addresses.
I'm going to do one more plug. The Studio Theater in Lindenhurst is a great place. And right now, my friend Larry Mitchell and some other very talented actors are actually doing a show called The Babylon Line that's about 1967 Levittown. And it is so good. We went the other night, and it's just total joy. So support live theater.
Yes.
Island, and go see Larry. And Rabbi, this was a total joy.
It has absolutely been for me. I have just one more question for you because I
thought you wanted to wind up.
No, this is the wind up. I get the guest all relaxed because they know the interview's over, and then I hit them with one more. So that's just what I do. But it's not
No, I am not related to Hitler.
Well, you are related to Teddy Roosevelt, perhaps, from some bastardization. And why wouldn't you think I would ask if you were related to Hitler? Goering, perhaps, but not Hitler. But no, you're 70. You just turned Mazel Tov. Congratulations, you're 70. Are you slowing down? Do you feel yourself not wanting to travel as much? Do you lose steam at the end of the night?
You know what? Gradually, like I don't do 4 shows. I don't go out to a comedy club and do 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. Very rarely. I only like to do 1 show, sometimes 2 on a Saturday. I don't go. If I go away, I'll go to Myrtle Beach for the weekend, but I won't go from Myrtle Beach to Nashville to Chicago. There's no demand for me, actually. I'm not that famous anymore, but there's lots of places to call. And the pockets, like I just went down to Boca Raton and sold out a great show down there. It's all, Long Islanders and New Yorkers, and the Stern markets were so huge. Like, I can still sell tickets in Chicago and Boston. Every year I go to Boston and do a slew of shows. But, yeah, I'm sure I'm much slower. Somebody said something that really annoyed me a couple of years ago, and I've never forgotten it. They said to me, you know what, I feel 30 years old until I try to get up. And every time I go to get up, I'm like, that son of a gun, man,
It's true. And believe me.
But you do slow down. I just went for a 3-mile walk.
Well, this has been just so much fun with Jackie, the Jokeman, Martling. I wish you health and lots of laughs. Shalom to you.
All right, listen to me. You got my email address. You gave it to the world.
Yes.
Please email me yours and Dave's home addresses or an address where I can send you guys a joke book and some CDs because this was really fun, and we'll talk again sometime.
We would love that. Absolutely. Jackie, shalom to you.
Hey, you can tell your audience.
Yeah.
If they were interested at all, if they send you a bunch of questions, then, next time I speak to you, you can ask me the questions that the listeners wanted to know. We'll do a Q&A, and that's always fun.
Well, how about we almost make a date? Like 6 months from now, we do this again.
It's a date.
Wonderful. See, Jackie.
Dave, call me. We'll put it in the book.
Absolutely. You got it. And everybody, you can see him and hear from him a lot earlier than that. Remember, Saturday night, March 31st, Studio Theater, Lindenhurst, the website, jokeland.com.
I'm doing the brokerage on Long Island in June.
That would be perfect.
The week before that.
So the brokerage is still there. Oh, that's wonderful.
The brokerage is great. I'm doing it, I think it's whatever the first Saturday is there in June. I think it's June 6th. I'm not sure.
So let's talk.
Do it then, because then I get something out of it. I get to promote my show.
Perfect. Let's talk. We'll set it up for late May, early June. We'll do it. Wonderful.
Thanks, fellas. Thank you, Dave, and I'll talk to you again, Rabbi.
You got it. Shalom
Hello.
to you. Bye-bye.